The Ganymede Research Station hung in space like a gleaming spider web, its interlocking modules and research pods extending outward from a central hub. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck's reinforced windows, watching as the salvage team's tug slowly maneuvered the damaged alien vessel into Dock 7. The ship's hull shimmered with an otherworldly iridescence, even through the scorch marks and impact damage that had led to its abandonment. Quite a sight, isn't it? James Rodriguez, the station's chief engineer, joined her at the window. His weathered face reflected both excitement and apprehension. The Arxer delegation wasn't exactly thrilled when they found out we'd recovered one of their derelicts. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the graceful curves of the alien craft. They'll be even less thrilled when they discover we've already started analyzing its systems. But salvage rights are salvage rights. We found it in neutral space. The vessel in question was a former Arxer scout ship, discovered drifting in the Kuiper Belt 3 months ago. Its crew had long since been evacuated, but the ship itself remained largely intact. For humanity's brightest engineers and scientists, it represented an unprecedented opportunity. The quantum field manifold readings are unlike anything we've seen before, Sarah continued, pulling up holographic data on her wrist display. Their approach to faster-than-light travel is fundamentally different from our crude warp bubbles. It's elegant, efficient, and completely beyond our current understanding, James finished. At least, that's what the Arxer ambassador keeps reminding us. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. For now. The next few weeks saw Dock 7 transformed into a hive of activity. Teams of engineers and scientists worked around the clock, carefully documenting and analyzing every aspect of the alien vessel. The Arxer had demanded the ship's return, citing religious and cultural significance, but Earth's governments had unified in invoking salvage law. The diplomatic tension only added urgency to their work. Sarah led the propulsion analysis team, meticulously mapping the quantum field manifolds that allowed the ship to slip between normal space and something else entirely. The Arxer called it the void between, but their explanations were wrapped in mystical terms that offered little scientific insight. Look at this, she called out one evening, gesturing to James and their colleague Dr. Puddle. The field geometry isn't static, it's adaptive. The ship doesn't force its way through space-time. It negotiates with it. James leaned in, his expression thoughtful, like water flowing around rocks instead of trying to blast through them. But the power requirements must be enormous. That's just it, Sarah replied, excitement creeping into her voice. They're not. The system uses quantum entanglement cascades to create what I can only describe as a resonance with local space-time. It's incredibly efficient, but the Arxer are using outdated containment protocols. If we modified the field harmonics and updated the containment systems, we could improve their own technology. Dr. Patel finished, his eyes widening. But the diplomatic implications would be significant. A new voice interrupted. The three scientists turned to find Station Director Collins standing in the doorway, her expression grave. The Arxer Science Ministry has just filed a formal protest. They're claiming we're defiling sacred technology. Sarah straightened, her jaw set. Director, what we're learning here could revolutionize human space travel. The Arxer haven't meaningfully improved this technology in centuries. They're bound by tradition and religious restrictions. We can do better. I agree, Collins replied, but we need to proceed carefully. The last thing Earth needs is a diplomatic crisis with our first alien allies. She paused, studying the holographic displays. How close are you to a working theory? We've already mapped the basic principles, Sarah said. Give us another month, and we might have a prototype design that incorporates our improvements. Collins nodded slowly. You have 2 weeks. After that, the diplomatic pressure may become too much to ignore. Whatever you're going to discover it quickly. As the director left, Sarah turned back to her team. Well, you heard her. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do with a little reverse engineering and imagination. None of them could have predicted just how far-reaching the consequences of their work would be, or how it would reshape humanity's place among the stars. The race to understand and improve alien technology had begun, and Earth's best minds were ready for the challenge. What they weren't ready for was the reaction their success would provoke from other spacefaring civilizations, or the age-old secrets their improvements would accidentally unlock. The holographic matrix above Sarah's workstation pulsed with complex geometric patterns, each representing a different layer of the quantum field manifold. 3 days had passed since Director Collins's deadline, but the breakthrough they needed remained elusive. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes, the midnight shift on Ganymede Station feeling particularly long. "You need to see this," James called from his station, his voice carrying an unusual edge. The Arxer weren't just using quantum entanglement for propulsion. There's something else buried in these systems. Sarah moved to his terminal, where a cascade of data scrolled past. At first glance, it looked like standard power distribution readings, but there was a pattern hidden within the noise. These energy signatures, they're not random fluctuations. No, James agreed, highlighting a recurring sequence. They're more like echoes. Every time the ship engaged its drive, it wasn't just moving through space, it was communicating with something. The implications sent a chill down Sarah's spine. The Arxer had always been secretive about their technology, wrapping it in layers of religious significance. Now they were discovering why. Dr. Patel joined them, his tablet displaying similar findings. "I've been analyzing the ship's navigation logs. The course corrections don't match standard stellar cartography. It's as if they were following invisible pathways through space. Or ancient ones," Sarah murmured, pieces clicking into place. What if the Arxer didn't invent this technology at all? What if they found it? Their discussion was interrupted by the station's alert system. Director Collins's voice came through the intercom, tense and controlled. "Dr. Chen, report to my office immediately. We have visitors." The walk to administration felt longer than usual. When Sarah entered Collins's office, she found not only the director but also 3 Arxer representatives. Their tall, avian forms towered over the human furniture, their iridescent feathers rippling with barely contained agitation. High Speaker Talon fixed Sarah with all 4 of his eyes. "Dr. Chen, we understand you have made certain discoveries regarding our vessel's systems. We've made progress in understanding the technology." "Yes," Sarah replied carefully. "The quantum field manipulation is fascinating. It is sacred," Talon interrupted, his translator struggling to convey the mixture of anger and fear in his voice. "You cannot comprehend the forces you are meddling with. The paths must remain undisturbed." Director Collins cleared her throat. "High Speaker, with all due respect, humanity has a right to develop its own understanding of physical laws. We're not bound by your religious restrictions." "This is not about religion," another Arxer, Science Minister Krell, said softly. "It is about safety, about preservation. There are things in the void between spaces that should remain undisturbed." Sarah's scientific curiosity sparked. "What things? If there are genuine safety concerns, we should know about them. We could work together." "Impossible," Talon declared. "The knowledge must remain sealed. We demand an immediate halt to all research and the return of our vessel." Before anyone could respond, James burst into the office, ignoring protocol. "Sarah, the containment field. Something's happening." The entire station shuddered, and through the office's viewport, Sarah saw a brilliant purple glow emanating from Dock 7. The Arxer representatives recoiled, their feathers standing on end. "You've awakened it," Krell whispered in horror. "The beacon responds." They rushed to the dock's observation level. The alien ship's hull had come alive with swirling patterns of light, and the quantum field sensors were registering massive disturbances in local spacetime. But instead of the chaos Sarah expected, the energy patterns were crystallizing into recognizable forms, into data. "It's a key," she breathed, watching the cascading symbols. "The entire propulsion system. It's not just for traveling through space. It's for accessing something. A network. The ancient paths, Talon confirmed grimly. Built by those who came before, those who vanished. We discovered one of their vessels, just as you found ours. We learned to use their tools, but never to understand them. It was safer that way. Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. But if we could understand it, truly understand it, think of what we could learn. The scientific advancement could doom us all. Krell interrupted. We are not the first to try. Others found the paths before us. Those who went too far, who awakened too much, they disappeared. Entire civilizations gone in an instant. The station shuddered again as another pulse of energy rippled out from the ship. In the space beyond the dock, the fabric of reality itself seemed to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Director, Sarah said, turning to Collins, I don't think we can stop this now even if we wanted to. Whatever this beacon is, it's already active. We need to understand it if we're going to control it. Collins looked from the humans to the Arxer and back, weighing decades of diplomatic relations against the unknown. Finally, she straightened her uniform. High Speaker, it seems we find ourselves in a position where cooperation is not just beneficial, but necessary. Perhaps it's time for both our species to face these ancient mysteries together. The Arxer leaders conferred in rapid, clicking whispers. Around them, the station's sensors continued to record unprecedented quantum fluctuations, and in the dock, the ancient vessel pulsed like a beating heart, calling out to something in the depths of space. Humanity had wanted to improve alien technology. Instead, they had stumbled upon something far more significant, the first breadcrumb in a trail left by a vanished civilization, leading to either enlightenment or oblivion. The real question was, were they ready to follow it? Ganymede Station's emergency containment protocols activated as another wave of quantum distortions rippled through local space. Sarah's team had spent the last 72 hours working alongside the Arxer scientists, trying to understand the cascade of ancient data streaming from the activated beacon. These patterns, Sarah muttered, manipulating the holographic display with practiced gestures. They're not just coordinates. They're instructions. She turned to Krell, who had proven more open to collaboration than his colleagues. Your people must have seen this before. These clearly aren't just random navigational markers. The Arxer scientists' feathers rippled with unease. We chose not to look too deeply. The few times our ancestors attempted to decode these signals, ships disappeared. Entire research stations went dark. James looked up from his own console, dark circles under his eyes betraying his exhaustion. But they didn't have our quantum computing systems, or our perspective. Look at this section here. It's not using base mathematics like we expected. It's using wave functions as a fundamental language. Before anyone could respond, the station's proximity alerts blared. Director Collins's voice came through the comm system, tense but controlled. Dr. Chen, we have multiple vessels dropping out of FTL. They're not Arxer, and they're not human. The observation deck's screens shifted to show the approaching ships. Their designs were unlike anything in human or Arxer records. Organic curves melded with crystalline structures, their hulls seeming to shift and flow like liquid metal. The Vrex, Talon whispered, his translator barely catching the words. They were supposed to be extinct. Extinct? Sarah asked, but her question was interrupted by a transmission cutting across all communication channels. The being that appeared on their screens was distinctly non-humanoid, a shifting mass of crystalline structures and energy patterns that somehow formed into a coherent entity. Its voice came as much through the station's structural vibrations as through the audio systems. The beacon sings again, it said, the translation software struggling to keep up. After 50,000 cycles, the network awakens. You have done what the Arxer feared to do. Director Collins stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in. I am Station Director Collins of the Ganymede Research Facility. We apologize if our activities have caused concern. Concern. The crystalline being's form rippled with what might have been amusement. You have done us a great service. We have waited, scattered and dormant, for a species brave enough or foolish enough to reactivate the network. The builders left us as guardians, but without the network, we could not maintain our true forms. Sarah's mind raced with implications. You're not organic at all, are you? You're some kind of quantum-based life form. Closer to truth, the being acknowledged. We are the Vrex, created by the builders to maintain and protect their legacy. When the network went dormant, we were forced to adopt simplified forms, to scatter among the younger races. Some of us chose to guide the Arxer to the remnants of builder technology, hoping they would reactivate the network. But they grew fearful, stagnant. Talon's feathers bristled. We chose wisdom over arrogance. The builders vanished for a reason. The builders ascended. The Vrex corrected. They left this realm for another, but their network was meant to be used, to be understood. They left it as a gift, a pathway for younger species to follow when they were ready. More ships were appearing now, vessels of different designs, representing species unknown to human or Arxer records. The station's quantum sensors showed unusual energy patterns emanating from each of them, resonating with the beacon's signal. Dr. Patel's console lit up with new data. The signal's changing. The beacon. It's not just broadcasting anymore. It's reconstructing something. Some kind of computational matrix in quantum space. Sarah watched in awe as the energy patterns around the ancient ship began to coalesce into visible structures, gossamer thin webs of light that stretched between the gathered vessels, forming connections that shouldn't have been possible in normal space. The network nodes are reactivating, the Vrex explained. For millennia, they lay dormant, waiting for a species with both the technological understanding and the courage to spark them back to life. Your modifications to the Arxer drive system created the exact resonance pattern needed. James let out a low whistle. We didn't just reverse engineer their technology. We accidentally figured out how to do what it was originally designed for. A fascinating outcome. Another voice joined in. This one belonging to a new arrival, a being that seemed to be composed entirely of shifting patterns of light. I am Observer Laxa of the Meridian Collective. We too have waited for the network's reactivation. Sarah noticed that the Arxer representatives had drawn closer together, their postures defensive. How many of you are there? She asked. How many species have been waiting for this? More than the Arxer ever suspected, Laxa replied. Some of us hidden, some believed extinct, some watching from dimensions adjacent to your own. The network was never meant to lie dormant. It is a living thing, a bridge between realities, a tool for evolution itself. Director Collins cleared her throat. This is all fascinating, but it leaves humanity in a rather complex position. We've apparently stumbled into something far larger than a simple technological discovery. Indeed, the Vrex acknowledge. You have inadvertently become key players in the next phase of galactic evolution. The question now is, what will you do with this responsibility? Sarah looked at her team, at the Arxer scientists, at the gathering of impossible beings around their station. Humanity had wanted to improve faster than light travel. Instead, they had awakened an ancient network of quantum computers that spanned the galaxy, created by a vanished civilization, maintained by artificial life forms, and destined to change everything they thought they knew about reality itself. We do what humans always do, she said finally. We learn, we adapt, and we move forward. She turned to the Arxer. Together, if you're willing. This is bigger than our species' differences now. The quantum web around the station pulsed with new energy, as if responding to her words. The network was awake, and the galaxy would never be the same. The next 48 hours on Ganymede Station felt like something out of a fever dream. The observation deck had been converted into an impromptu diplomatic center as representatives from a dozen previously unknown species arrived to witness humanity's first steps into the network. Sarah found herself acting as both scientist and diplomat, trying to bridge the gap between human understanding and the quantum-based communications of their new allies. The problem isn't just technological, she explained to Director Collins during a rare quiet moment. We're dealing with civilizations that think in quantum superpositions. For them, multiple realities aren't theoretical, they're everyday experience. Collins massaged her temples, looking out at the gathered alien ships. The quantum web connecting them had grown more complex, creating patterns that seemed to extend into dimensions human eyes couldn't quite process. The UN Security Council is in continuous session. Half of Earth's governments are panicking. The other half want to dive headfirst into whatever this is. They're not wrong to be cautious, James added, joining them with fresh data readings. The energy output from these network nodes is off the charts. One wrong move, and we could tear a hole in space-time. The Vrex representative, who had introduced itself as Nexus, manifested nearby in a shower of crystalline light. Your species' caution is admirable, but unnecessary. The network contains its own safeguards. The builders designed it to be forgiving of newcomers. That's reassuring, Sarah said, but it doesn't change the fact that we're dealing with technology so advanced it might as well be magic. Our best quantum computers can barely process the basic protocols. Yet you succeeded where the Arxer failed. Observer Laxa noted, their light forms shifting through complex patterns. Your willingness to question, to modify, to improve. These are traits the builders valued. The Arxer sought to preserve without understanding. You seek to understand, to grow. A commotion near the main docking bay drew their attention. A new vessel had arrived. Its design unlike any they'd seen yet. It seemed to exist partially in normal space, and partially elsewhere. From it emerged beings that appeared to be made of pure mathematics, their forms described by equations rather than matter. The Axiom Collective, Nexus explained. They were among the first species to follow the builder's path. They exist primarily in what you would call abstract mathematical space. Sarah watched in fascination as the mathematical beings interfaced directly with the network, their forms merging with the quantum web in ways that made her head hurt to observe. How many different types of intelligence are out there? How many ways are there to exist? More than any single species can comprehend, Laxa replied. That is why the network exists, to bridge the gaps between different forms of existence, to allow cooperation and growth across all spectrums of being. James whistled low. No wonder the Arxer were scared. This isn't just about faster ships or better computers. This is about the fundamental nature of existence itself. As if summoned by his words, High Speaker Talon approached their group, his feathers now settled in what Sarah had learned to recognize as a pose of resignation. We were wrong, he announced, surprising everyone. For generations, we hoarded the builder's gifts, too afraid to truly understand them. We thought we were protecting the galaxy. Instead, we were holding it back. It's not too late to change that, Sarah offered. Humanity could work with the Arxer, combine our perspectives. You have centuries of experience with this technology, even if you didn't fully understand it. We have fresh eyes and new approaches. Director Collins straightened, her diplomatic instincts sensing an opportunity. A formal partnership, both our species learning together, with guidance from the network's guardians. It would help ease some of the political tensions back on Earth. The station shuddered slightly as another wave of quantum energy pulsed through the network. The mathematical beings from the Axiom Collective had apparently made some kind of breakthrough, causing new patterns to emerge in the web of light surrounding them. They're opening new nodes, Nexus explained, its crystalline form sparkling with excitement. The network is more extensive than even we knew. Your activation of the beacon has started a chain reaction. Dr. Petal burst onto the observation deck, his tablet displaying rapidly scrolling data. You need to see this. The network, it's not just connecting different points in space. It's connecting different points in possibility. These patterns we're seeing, they're probability waves of potential futures. Sarah's mind reeled at the implications. You mean we could actually see different possible outcomes before making decisions? Navigate through probability itself. The builders called it conscious evolution. Laxa confirmed. the ability to see and choose optimal futures, to guide development at both individual and cosmic scales. Collins took a deep breath. I need to contact Earth immediately. This goes way beyond improved space travel. We're talking about the next stage of human development. The next stage of all development, Nexus corrected. The network was designed to elevate all species who were ready to join it. Your accidental discovery has simply accelerated the timeline. As if to emphasize the point, new ships continued to arrive. Vessels of all shapes and sizes, representing species that had been waiting in the shadows of space for this moment. The quantum web grew more complex with each arrival, creating a vast tapestry of light and possibility that stretched as far as the eye could see. Humanity had wanted to reverse engineer alien technology. Instead, they had stumbled upon the key to unlocking the galaxy's greatest mysteries. Now they faced their greatest challenge yet, learning to navigate not just through space, but through the very fabric of reality itself. 3 months after the activation of the network, Ganymede Station had transformed beyond recognition. The once simple research facility now served as humanity's primary interface with the quantum web, its corridors filled with beings from across the galaxy. Sarah stood in what they now called the Convergence Chamber, watching as human scientists worked alongside their alien counterparts. It's remarkable how quickly your species adapts, observer Laxa commented, their light form shifting in what Sarah had learned to recognize as appreciation. You've already begun developing organic quantum interfaces that even the builders hadn't considered. Sarah nodded toward a team led by James and Dr. Patel, who were working with several Axiom collective mathematicians. Their hybrid computing system combined human intuition with mathematical beings' abstract processing power, creating something entirely new. We had to adapt, she replied. Our brains aren't wired for quantum thinking like yours are. But we're good at finding workarounds, at seeing connections others miss. The evidence of this surrounded them. Where other species interfaced with the network through pure mathematics or quantum resonance, humans had developed a hybrid approach. Bioneural interfaces merged with quantum processors, allowing human consciousness to translate network communications into understandable forms. High Speaker Talon approached, his once rigid demeanor now more relaxed after months of collaboration. The Arxer High Council has formally approved the Joint Development Initiative. We will share all our records of builder technology, without reservation. Better late than never, James called out from his workstation, where a holographic display showed the latest prototype of their hybrid dry system. By combining Arxer traditional knowledge with human innovation and network insights, they had created something unprecedented, a drive that could navigate both physical space and probability itself. Director Collins entered the chamber, accompanied by several representatives from Earth's newly formed Department of Quantum Affairs. The first civilian training programs are ready to begin, she announced. We're about to have our first generation of human probability navigators. Sarah felt a surge of pride. The path hadn't been easy. There had been accidents, setbacks, and moments of sheer terror as humanity grappled with powers they barely understood. But they had persevered, driven by the same curiosity and determination that had first led them to reverse engineer the Arxer ship. There's something you should see, Nexus said, its crystalline form materializing nearby. The Vrex Guardian interfaced with the network, causing the quantum web around them to shift and reshape itself. The network has been analyzing human interaction patterns. It's learning from you, just as you learn from it. The display showed a cascade of probability waves, but with a new pattern emerging, one that incorporated what the network had termed human intuitive leaps. The ability to see connections that pure logic missed, to imagine possibilities that pure mathematics overlooked. The builders designed the network to evolve, Laxa explained, but they never anticipated this particular path. Your species doesn't just use the network. You change it, improve it, make it more than it was. A sudden alert drew their attention. One of the probability waves had shifted dramatically, revealing a potential future that caused even the Axiom collective beings to pause in surprise. Is that what I think it is? Sarah asked, studying the patterns. A pathway to the builders themselves, Nexus confirmed. Your hybrid interfaces have detected traces of their passage through higher dimensions. Traces that our pure quantum sensors missed for millennia. The chamber erupted in excited discussion. The builders hadn't just ascended. They had left a trail, one that only became visible when viewed through the lens of human innovation combined with network technology. So what do we do? James asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Follow them. Director Collins shook her head, smiling. Not yet. We've got enough to deal with right here, learning to walk before we try to run after gods. A wise choice, Talon agreed. Though I suspect that when humanity does decide to follow that trail, you'll find ways to surprise even the builders themselves. Sarah looked around the chamber, at humans and aliens working together, at the quantum web that connected them all, at the endless possibilities stretching out before them. They had started with a simple desire to improve alien technology and ended up helping to reshape the very fabric of galactic civilization. You know what the best part is, she said, grinning at her colleagues both human and alien. We're just getting started. The network pulsed with energy, as if in agreement. In the space around Ganymede Station, ships of all species continued their work, their quantum drives now incorporating human innovations. The mathematical patterns of probability curved and twisted through dimensions, showing countless possible futures. Futures where humanity's unique approach to problem-solving helped guide the galaxy into a new age of discovery and cooperation. They had reverse-engineered their way into a diplomatic incident, but in doing so, they had engineered something far greater, a future where the best qualities of all species could combine and flourish. It wasn't just about the technology anymore. It was about the connections they built, the bridges they crossed, and the boundaries they dared to push. The human touch, it seemed, was exactly what the galaxy had been waiting for.